So wonderful.
Welcome, guys. Good evening, and it's Friday evening. And what we do on Friday evenings is, as members of our community, as members of the Online Money Book Club, we get together to read and discuss a book. And these past few weeks, the group has been reading an interesting book that really helps us set the foundation. Okay, that really helps us set the foundation.
Welcome, guys. Good evening, and it's
okay. So warm welcome, Shivani. Thank you for joining. I think I should remove the waiting room so that everybody can join in. Okay, good evening, warm welcome. All right. So what we do in the Online Money Book Club is we read books on personal finance, investing, habit and mindset building, so critical, right? Most of us have information around us, but if we do not have the habit and a mindset, then we cannot make do, or we cannot really make anything out of the information that's available. And that's why we have in the library a lot of books around habits and mindset as well. So if you guys haven't browsed it, then please, I encourage you to go through the Online Money Book Club library. There are a lot of books that you can pick up and read. And currently what the group has been reading is this book titled Warren Buffett Invests Like a Girl and Why You Should Too. And from the initial few chapters that I read, what I got is that, as women, we naturally have the many traits that make us patient investors. And as investors, and particularly in the Money Gym program, also we learn that, wealth can be built via long-term investing. Trading is a very different game. It requires very different mindset. And in that regards, I think we are, I think it's very, this book, what it does is, as women, for any woman who's reading it, it further gives us the confidence to really take it on. Come on, you can do it, you already have it in you. So that's what the book, I think, sets the platform as. And I'm excited that so many of you are here. So could you just share if anyone has been reading this book? I have read parts of it. What about the others?
I was meaning to read it the whole day. I procrastinated as usual. But then I was like, but I'll still go for the book club meeting. Maybe eventually I'll pick it up. Okay. And I don't have to get everything. I'll just, even if I pick one thing from the session, that's fine. So I keep.
Absolutely. And that has been the encouragement that with the kind of lives we lead, all of us, some are engaged at work, and then we have families to take care of. So I have always benefited from joining the discussion no matter what, whether I have read the book or not, because one, I take away something, and number two, it inspires me to go back and read, pick up the book and read. So I'm certain that you will definitely find some takeaway from the discussion. Okay, Fasila, are you joining in for the first time, the book club? Okay, what about others? Bhagya and Nisha, where are you guys? Are you, have you been reading this book? Okay, Nisha's joining for the first time. Got it. Okay. I know that Hira has been reading this book, and we will spend some time reading chapter 11. That's where we have reached now. But I would also invite Hira to share, because she's been reading, and I'm sure there are some insights she'd be happy to share with all of us. Okay, great to know all the first timers who are here, and this definitely will not be your last time, is the intention. Okay, Hira, we can't hear you.
All right. So hi, everyone. Good evening. So yes, I just picked this book, and this definitely was interesting. However, I would say I haven't read all the chapters, some chapters in bits and pieces, but to prep myself to be here, I just felt that, okay, which was the last chapter that the group perhaps would have picked up. And when I picked the previous chapter, which is learn from mistakes, and it was very interesting to know that, very heartening actually, which talked about that, how Warren Buffett also says that I've done so many mistakes and investing cannot happen without you making these mistakes. And how what he's done is learned from those mistakes. And, something so wise, like he says that, um, you're going to make mistakes. So, in the investing journey, it's very natural for you to make mistakes. So just take them in your stride. So when he talks about that, how just like taking risk, making mistakes is a part of the game. So take them in your stride. Don't beat yourself up for it. And but what is really the key is, are you getting at the source of it? That, what is the mistake that I made? And was it because I did not look into something, I did not do my study or my research effectively before I made that investment? So yeah, I could really connect. It was a very natural approach that he's inviting to for everyone to really take. So yeah, this was very briefly that I could connect with. And yeah, we could read maybe some portions from here, and that would also be very interesting. Yeah, Sheetal, over to you.
Much. Okay. And before we begin reading, because many of you said that you are here for the first time, so I'd really like to know whether you have an understanding of stock investing, or who Warren Buffett is. Again, he's a very popular name in the investing world, but I know that before I started investing, I had no clue who he was. So I think it'll just set the context right when you know who Warren Buffett is. So do you know him, or at least have heard about him? I mean,
The only thing I know about him is he is a person who's very famous for investing. He began investing when he was very young, around 11 or 12 years old, and he's friends with Bill Gates, I guess. Yeah.
got that. Yes, yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, he is, he is a successful investor, and his style of investing, from whatever little I know, is mostly value investing, where he's really able to see some of the things, from reading from here and there about him. What I've learned is that one is really being able to see the value of a company much ahead. I also have come to know from reading, of course, about him, that he reads a lot, and he is also one of the reasons, because he stresses so much on reading, and I have heard that he reads a lot of the annual reports, and which is what has encouraged me also as a stock investor to really learn the art of reading an annual report, because it can be a 300-pager book with not very interesting images sometimes, and it will also have a lot of numbers. So it used to always be daunting for me. However, because I kept hearing this, listening to, one must read as an investor. That's why I also persisted with the Online Money Book Club. And number two, as a stock investor, read the annual reports to really know. I mean, that's one good starting point to know about the companies. And annual reports are easily available on the websites of the companies. So, so it's taken me several years to really be okay about, going ahead and reading the annual report and beginning to take whatever I understand. I don't get everything, but it's okay. I get something each time. So yeah, he is a successful American investor, and so please feel free to read more about him. And if you read this book, then definitely you'll know more about him from this book itself. So yeah, great to have everybody. Now let's begin. I would invite a volunteer. So who would like to read the book? I will project the book on the screen, and then you can read the book for the community. So who would like to volunteer to read? We'll read a couple of pages, and then I get some of you are stock investors. I think some of you are starting new. So feel free to just bring in your questions, your thoughts as best as you understand. Okay. So I would like to volunteer to read for the community. In the meantime, let me project. We are going to today read chapter 11, Embrace Feminine Influences. So anyone? Mamta, Shivani, Bhagyashri. Come on, you just have to read.
Okay, looks like they're going to warm up. So yeah, I can begin. And I'm sure the others can also follow. Yeah.
Okay. So for the second round, please be ready to raise your hand. This is how we do it in the community. Okay. So go ahead, Hira. Thank you so much for volunteering. Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you so much. All right. So we're beginning with chapter 11. It says embrace feminine influences. We learned in chapter 2 about the scientific studies showing the differences in the way women and men approach investing. And we discovered that there are even differences attributable to testosterone or the relative lack thereof. This lack of testosterone tends to make women less willing to take extreme risks, while the herd behavior of testosterone-laden men can possibly make drops in the stock market even more pronounced. It may seem a stretch to claim Buffett has the testosterone levels of a woman and not a man. Remember the oversexed guy in a harem comment. And well, as much as breaking the news that Buffett's actually a woman might be fun, we've got to admit he is, in fact, a man complete with, yes, the testosterone. And we're certainly not going to go about the various possible ways to verify this, that's for sure. However, it is true that he surrounded himself with a cadre of smart, strong women over the years. Perhaps the influence of those women has resulted in his feminine side shining forth, as we've seen. Let's get acquainted with some of the most important ones. So the late Susan Buffett, known as Susie to her family and friends, was his first wife and one of the biggest influences on Buffett's adult years. They met when Buffett was a young man, and she was there for the beginning of all that would become legend. Buffett's early job with his idol Ben Graham in New York, his return to his beloved hometown of Omaha, the start of the partnership, the purchase and subsequent transformation of Berkshire Hathaway, and the rise of her husband and the ranks of the rich and powerful. Through it all, Susie was his protector and tireless supporter. She made it so that he could focus on what he wanted to as much as he wanted to. Not surprisingly for Buffett, that meant studying annual reports and reading up in his study every night while Susie looked after their 3 children. Buffett depended on her, and she's undoubtedly a big part of the reason he was able to become the man he is today. Sadly, she passed away in 2004 of a stroke following a bout with cancer. All right, I'm continuing. So journalist Carol Loomis, the second person, and bridge champion Sharon Osbourne are both close to Buffett for very different reasons. Loomis has been a longtime friend of his since meeting him in the 60s when she was an investing columnist for Fortune. She remains associated with Fortune today as an editor at large. Buffett's referred to Loomis as his best friend, other than Charlie Munger, of course. Buffett and Loomis hit it off and became fast friends. And we have Loomis to thank in part for the clarity and wit Buffett has demonstrated over the years in his letters to shareholders. The earliest letters he wrote had been more like bare bones financial reporting and much less like the expansive, expressive, folksy letters we enjoy today. In 1978, though, Buffett decided he wanted to start using the letters to educate his partners on the important business issues of the day, as well as teach them timeless investing lessons. Buffett tapped Loomis for the job of helping him edit each year's offering. And the letters remain today an incredibly useful resource for anyone wanting to learn about investing from the man himself. His voice, temperament, and homespun wisdom shine through in each and every one, in which other giant publicly traded insurance-based holding companies' annual letter to shareholders are you going to be graced with quotes from the likes of Mae West, Woody Allen, and just about everyone in between. Which other executives will take the time to teach you and will be humble enough to admit their mistakes year after year in clear language? Just one, folks, Buffett. If you haven't yet taken the time to read his shareholder letters, make the time for it. You will not be disappointed after you finish this book, of course. Yeah. Someone else who would like to maybe go ahead? Shall I continue, Sheetal?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Bridge champion Sharon Osberg met Buffett through Carol Loomis in 1993 at a bridge tournament and became another close friend of his, as well as one of his favorite bridge partners. In addition to his voracious reading, one of the Buffett's other loves in life is the card game bridge. Through playing with Osberg, Buffett's game improved and his adoration of the game and of her deepened. Her relationship with Buffett has blossomed well beyond the card game, and she is a trusted friend and ally, a loyal member of his tight-knit group of friends. Osberg has said of him, quote, Warren Buffett is my best friend. We talk every day, unquote. A December 2009 profile of Buffett and Osberg again confirmed that they remain close, talking several times a day, often while playing bridge online. Buffett met Kathryn Graham, the widowed owner of the Washington Post company, in 1973, when he first became interested in investing in it. Graham was in charge of running the business following her husband's death, and I'll just close this paragraph, was tentative initially about Buffett's intentions. She did not come from a business background and was nervous about losing the business, or just generally about making mistakes while she was in charge. Yeah, I'm inviting someone else. Who's next? All right, so is that Bhagyashree?
She said that it's quite noisy. I can read for the...
Okay, sure. Sure,
So-
Sheetal, go ahead.
Buffett had not a bone of ill will in his body, though, and set about teaching Graham about business and finances, helping her learn and showing her that she had the ability and self-confidence to do a great job and be an effective leader. Remember, too, his childhood paper route, delivering the Washington Post in the DC area while his father was in Congress. He had long loved the company and had nothing but admiration for it and for Graham. They became dear friends and were close until her death in 2001. In Graham's Pulitzer Prize-winning autobiography, Personal History, she writes of Buffett's influence on her in the early days of her leadership at the Post. My business education began in earnest. He literally took me to business school, which was just what I needed. How lucky I was to be educated to the extent possible by Warren Buffett, and how many people would have given anything for the same experience. It was hard work for both of us. Warren admitted I needed what he called a little remedial work, but absolutely vital for me. For all those years, since 1973, Berkshires owned a chunk of the Washington Post, about 20% at last glance, currently making Buffett's company the largest shareholder of the venerable newspaper and media outfit. Buffett also served since 1974 on the Post's board of directors, minus an 8-year period when he was serving on Capital Cities board, marking decades of service to the organization. The Post announced in January 2011 that Buffett would be retiring from the board and would not be not seeking re-election for his seat when his term expired in May 2011. He has acknowledged in recent times that the newspaper business is difficult in this current age of readily available free online content, saying he wouldn't invest in another one, but his devotion to the Post and to the Graham family are steadfast. His retirement from the Post board should not be read as his loyalty wavering, but as a move to simplify his life and focus exclusively on running Berkshire Hathaway. In fact, in classic Buffett form, he said at the time of the announcement of Berkshire's investment in the Washington Post company, "We're going to keep every share of stock we have. I would never sell a share of the Post." Another woman who influenced Buffett tremendously was entrepreneur Rose Blumkin, a diminutive Russian immigrant who arrived in America at 23 in 1917, speaking no English and having no formal education of any sort. We aren't talking no college education here. We are talking no education of any kind, ever, period, full stop. Despite what looked like long odds, she started and ran the Nebraska Furniture Mart in Omaha, building an empire for $500. With an innate business sense and a focus on value and never spending even a cent more than she had to, Mrs. B, as she was known to everyone in Omaha, and eventually to every Berkshire Hathaway shareholder, endeared herself to Buffett. When he talks about Mrs. B in the Berkshire shareholder letters, it's much like the lowly pupil or disciple respecting the master. You can tell that his admiration and respect for her are simply immense. He speaks frequently of her hard work and dedication, saying year after year that she was in the store 7 days a week from opening to close. And this was when she was in her 90s. Imagine how she must have been for the decades and decades prior to that. It's easy to see why Buffett was inspired by her. And it's possible not to be inspired ourselves. And it's impossible not to be inspired ourselves. In 1983, he bought her business without ever demanding an audit or insisting on seeing an inventory count. This may seem counterintuitive, given that we know Buffett researches so deeply, but it in fact reflects the respect he had for Mrs. B. He just trusted her word, plain and simple. She had that much integrity. She was also a fiery personality and fierce competitor with the motto, "Sell cheap and tell the truth." Mrs. B worked well past the age when most of us would consider retiring because, like Buffett, she truly loved and was obsessed with running her business. She died at age 104 in 1998. Two current female business leaders Buffett has recently shared his admiration for, choosing, as he often does, the Berkshire shareholder letter as his vehicle for lavishing praise, are Susan Jacks of Borsheims and Kathy Barron Tamraz of Business Wire, both subsidiaries of Berkshire Hathaway. Of Jacks, Buffett said, "Susan came to Borsheims 25 years ago as a $4 an hour saleswoman. Though she lacked a managerial background, I did not hesitate to make her CEO in 1994. She's smart, she loves the business, and she loves her associates. That beats having an MBA degree anytime." He followed up with his thoughts on Tamraz, saying, "Another of our great managers is Kathy Barron Tamraz, who has significantly increased Business Wire's earnings since we purchased it early in 2006. She's an owner's dream. Kathy, it should be noted, began her career as a cab driver." All of these women's influence on Buffett is as varied as their roles in his life. He appreciates and respects them, though whether it's for their business sense, their journalistic acumen, their competitive spirit at the bridge table and on the floor of the furniture store, or their loving and giving nature. We can't say for certain that Buffett would not be the investor he is today without knowing and having relationships with them, but it is a safe bet that he's a happier man for it. While readers of this book, both male and female, probably don't have the benefits of knowing these women as Buffett has, we can still learn from their examples as well. Who doesn't read about Mrs. B and marvel at her ability to overcome obstacles, work hard, and build a store and a legacy that endures? Or think how impressive it is that Kathryn Graham, going into a difficult and uncertain situation without the knowledge she needed, started from the ground up to learn about business and eventually grew into a mighty figure in the publishing world. Anyone who's read Buffett's shareholder letters must be grateful to Carol Loomis for helping him find, define, and tweak his remarkable and unique voice over the years. These were influences for Buffett and vice versa naturally, but we can and should also embrace their stories, appreciating what they've meant to him over the years. So I'm going to pause here so that we can just take in what we have read and then share our insights. What are we getting? Hi, Meryl, Nino, warm welcome, guys.
Hey, hi Sheetal. Hey everyone.
Hey, I will.
This book, the more and more you read it, the more and more it makes you feel so proud of being a woman. One thing is that I experienced. Like, it makes you feel really good about being a woman. I think that's one thing. And as I read about all the women mentioned here, women who had been around him, friends with him, also makes me wonder that how often as women are we proud of being women or women around us, or we take or we allow women around us to influence us in a positive way. And so those are the initial thoughts from reading this.
I think one of the things that I found very exciting is that this lady Graham, right, that he worked with. I had seen a film on her. It was, in fact, the role was played by Meryl Streep, my namesake. And what was really interesting is that she inherited this entire newspaper from her father. And she was very low on confidence because she was surrounded by only male board members who were so forceful in their opinions, right, about what she should and she shouldn't do, because the paper was going through a very difficult time. And I'm so glad to hear that Warren Buffett stepped in, not in this mansplaining way, but in a way that promoted her confidence, because she was an intelligent, smart woman. So I'm very happy to hear about the role that he played in just giving her that.
Yeah, you're gonna mute. Okay,
sorry. In terms of like hand holding her in a constructive way and also like boosting her confidence. That was something really nice to hear.
Which movie is this again, Meryl?
It's called The Post.
Okay.
And it is on the Washington Post. How she, so they're the ones who broke the whole Watergate scandal. They didn't break it, but they continued that story. And it was a very big risk they took, and she had to take the decision. Should we go ahead? Should we not go ahead? She said, screw it, do it. And then they survived, and it was a new era for them.
Okay, The Post.
With Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
I just
Correct.
added, keep it Tom Hanks. I just searched it. It's on my watch list now.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
It makes life easy when someone recommends. Otherwise, I could spend endless minutes browsing, or a full hour browsing, not watching anything. So thank you for that recommendation. For the mention. Okay. So yeah, what about others, inviting others? How was this chapter for you? What are your thoughts?
Hi, Neelu here. I just joined in between. I think more than half of the part I didn't listen to. But then towards the end of the end of the session, it's like he's um, stepping into health that praising the integrity and hard work of the women that he had met with as his colleagues. So that is one of the finest elements in every woman that we see.
Thank you so much for contributing, Nino. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Any thoughts you want to build on?
For me, what really opened up is how appreciative Warren is, and really looking at what how we normally look at, if at a workplace, maybe we may just be focused on, okay, what are the skills the person is bringing, but look at him really wanting to learn from his friends around and his women friends, and really being inspired by them. So I think that really tells us that how Warren tells us about him, tells me about him, that how he's wherever he is, he's just looking at, okay, what can I learn from the other person. That's really what I got from this, and really looking at partnership. That's what tells me about Warren through this chapter.
And building on what you're sharing, Hira, it reminds me of how we often say that, yes, it's true that as investors, for one, I think especially as stock investors, because of the volatility in the market, and because so many of us are new investors, or so many of you may, as you move forward, may progress to becoming knowledgeable stock investors, So it reminds me of how, one, we have to just keep learning, from each other. And you can never be a lone investor. I think that's something that we have learned, that why do we need a community? Because even when we invest in a particular stock, staying up to date with what is happening, or the decisions that a certain company may make, we may look at it from different perspectives to really come down to a decision about, so does it still seem like a good company to continue investing in? So it really makes me think of all of that, that one lesson is definitely he is a forever learner, and that's what it reminds me to be, a learner on this journey, and constantly learning, reading. So yeah, I've missed reading with the book club. No book club, no reading is happening in my life. The truth is that, so I will always feel good that I come in once in a while.
That is so true with me as well. Actually, I was never able to finish any book, but I wonder myself that I was able to finish the first one, and now started the second one as well. That that the goal.
Yes. I have whatever books I have finished only through the book club. Okay, yeah. Nisha, is my voice breaking now? Is it good now? So Nino, you and I should partner, and you and I should just keep checking with each other, meeting.
Yeah, I can hear you properly.
Okay. So shall we continue reading? I'm really excited about the next chapter because it so resonates with how we must function, I think,
I have something to say. Can I just?
Yeah, go ahead, Shivani, please.
Yeah. So I don't recall the nitty gritties of each woman. I don't individually remember them, but the basic crux is like, oh, they were great and they were very caring and like very diligent and all of those things. And that's how they became an inspiring figure for Warren Buffett. And when you ask, ki, "Acha, okay, what stood out for you and all of that in the beginning of the discussion, I was like, shit, I don't have any such woman in my life. Uh, so where do I draw this inspiration? And then throughout the discussion, I was like, no, maybe there are women. This filter is new. Uh, so maybe I need to start now looking at women around me with that filter. Till now, maybe I haven't looked at them. And also, like most of them are homemakers with, at least they don't have the filter of managing finances the way I'm thinking. So probably have to, yeah. So that was on my head, on my mind, sorry, not on head.
Yeah, that was such a beautiful sharing and inquiry that I don't have that, but wait a second, maybe I do, So, wow. So keep sharing with us whatever you discover as you stay with this inquiry. That was really beautiful, Shivani. Thank you. Okay, so may I invite some, Shivani, would you like to read?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to share the screen here. Okay, here you go.
Maintain consistent, persistent results. Oh, wow. Lol. This isn't a trait of female investors and their temperaments, but it's an important outcome and one we would be remiss not to talk about. After all, without something to show for all that discipline and calm focus, what's the point, right? Warren Buffett's been investing since he was a mere 11-year-old and managing money professionally on his own since 1956, when he was just 25 years old. During the time we can most easily track his results, that would be the Buffett partnership and Berkshire Hathaway. He's put together an impressive record, one untouchable by anyone else anyone else over that length of time. During the years Buffett was running the partnership from 1956 to 1969, he racked up an astounding 32% average annual return before fees. That means for every $10,000, that's dollars, right? Yeah, okay. Some lucky and or prescient person invested with Buffet at the beginning of that period, he or she had roughly $300,000 when he closed the partnership down. Looking at what he's done with Berkshire, the compounded annual gain is per share book value from 1965 to 2010 is 20.2%. Not too shabby. That's 44 years of evidence, 44 years that Buffet's been successful through recessions and heedless moments of market euphoria, through wars, through 9 US presidents, through disco, punk rock, new wave, hair metal, grunge, boy bands, and all flavors of hip hop. Through bell bottoms and platforms the first, second, and third time around. Through Fonzie, JR, Ewing, ALF, The Fresh Prince, and countless ridiculous reality stars. Had you instead chosen to just invest your money in an index fund tracking the S&P 500, your average return would have been 9.4% or less than half of Buffett's average year. The overall gain of Berkshire's book value from 1964, can you scroll a little more, please? Yeah. The overall gain for Berkshire's book value from 1964 to 2009 is 409% compared to S&P's 6,262%. No, that's not a typo. It's really 409%. Given how remarkably good Buffett has been at allocating capital for more than 40 years, it's tough to argue that he's been anything but consistent and persistent that he's able to do something special. And yet, beginning in the 1970s and continuing into the 1980s and even today, that's precisely what some academics tried to argue, dogmatically teaching that Buffet is a mere anomaly, and that the market can't be beaten. The prevailing theory at the time, bouncing along the halls of business schools near and far, is known as the efficient market theory. Without getting too professional about things, although the tweeted coat and leather elbow patches can certainly be adorable, the theory holds that the market fully prices in all available information. That in turn means that a stock's full value is always reflected in its price, and therefore there is no such thing as a bargain or an underpriced or mispriced security. That also suggests on the flip side that supposed market bubbles really aren't. If information is always perfect and prices are always right, that means that shares of internet company Yahoo, for instance, trading at a split adjusted high of $108.17 in the final week of 1999 compared to the mid-teens both 1 year and 10 years later was appropriate and rational. Okay. So then the years that Buffett and Graham before him spent searching for companies selling at a reasonable margin of safety were just futile efforts, according to the believers of the efficient market theory. How silly for them to think that the market, which is, don't forget, driven by humans and all their various emotions, along with some giant supercomputers programmed and controlled by humans, could ever be wrong, could ever overreact. In fact, you might as well just throw darts at a page from the Wall Street Journal tagged up on your wall that waste another moment analyzing a company. The market had no inefficiencies, so there was no point in trying to discover and exploit them. But what of the fact that Buffett had produced years upon years of market-beating returns, that he obviously knew how to find companies that were undervalued, that he had implemented a logical system for finding them, and that he was so darn successful? Oh, him. He's just a fluke, the academics argued. He's lucky, nothing to see here, move along. Buffett took great joy during that time in refuting the EMT theorists. He gave a legendary speech in 1984 at his business school, alma mater, Columbia, wherein he skewered the efficient market theory proponents by providing example after example of successful investors who would build strong track records using a Ben Graham and David Dodd-like approach to analyzing companies. Naturally, he included himself in this number, dubbing them all the super investors of Graham and Doddsville. I don't know how to pronounce it. In the speech, which was reprinted in Hermes, the magazine of Columbia's business school, he said, "I'm convinced there is much inefficiency in the market. These Graham and Doddsville investors have successfully exploited gaps between price and value. When the price of a stock can be influenced by a..." Yeah, can I just see the last line? Yeah. When the price of the stock can be influenced by a herd on Wall Street with prices set at a margin by the most emotional person or the greediest person or the most depressed person, it is hard to argue that the market always prices rationally. In fact, the market prices are frequently nonsensical. The efficient market debate continues, although the growing field of behavioral finance is undermining the theory's validity bit by bit by showing that many times, or perhaps most times, market actions aren't driven by rational people making rational decisions. It is safe to say, though, that the market is, in fact, more efficient than it was when Buffett started out. It's not perfectly efficient, but it's closer, thanks to two complementary factors. First, the sheer availability of information online today makes it much easier for small investors to dig through financial statements from their own studies and home offices, hunting for undervalued companies. And the popularity of someone like Buffett means that more investors, young and old, are learning about his methods and putting them into play in the market. So you've got all these folks looking for similar types of stocks and situations using lots of same readily available information. There will continue to be mispriced stocks, and there will be superior money managers and investors like Buffett. It's just going to take a little bit more effort to get there. Luckily for the Graham and Doddsville investors of the future, there's also no shortage of smart people on Wall Street finding the next new surefire way to invest, telling the rest of us that it's different this time. Buffet has also pointed out the upside of teaching efficient market theory to so many students, saying in his 1988 letter to Berkshire shareholders, in any sort of contest, financial, mental, or physical, it's an enormous advantage to have opponents who have been taught that it's useless to even try. From a selfish point of view, Graham Heights should probably endow chairs to ensure the perpetual teaching of EMT. Now we know Buffet performed well, logging incredible gains over his career, but it's also interesting to know that Berkshire Hathaway has, during times of market decline, performed better than the S&P 500. That is, its shares haven't fallen as much percentage-wise as the S&P did during those periods. This quality makes Berkshire's results even more compelling. Buffet pointed this out in 2009 letter to shareholders, writing, "We have never had 85-year period beginning with 1960. We have never had any 5-year period beginning with 1965 to 69 and ending with 2005 to 2009. And there have been 41 of these during which our gain in book value did not exceed the S&P's gain. Second, though we have lagged the S&P in some years that were positive for the market, we have consistently done better than the S&P in 11 years during which it delivered negative results. In other words, our defense has been better than our offense, and that's likely to continue. So keep the following facts in mind when thinking about performance. Ignore anyone who tells you throwing darts at newspaper is same as intelligent analysis. A good defense is just as valuable as a good offense. Stick to a system that's logical and works, and you too could build a lengthy and impressive track record.
Okay, let's pause there. Thank you so much for reading that for us, Shivani.
No problem.
Okay, so anytime when they throw a lot of text and a lot of numbers, I get confused. Okay, so anything you guys captured, any insights you'd like to share?
So I'd like to go, and you rightly said, whenever there's just too much numbers in text, so I definitely lost focus. But I think what I connected with is the 3 points that that he's sharing, and we're saying like throwing dartboards, and intelligent analysis. So really that tells me that just don't follow what people suggestions and hacks that people are just giving out. Really get down to your analysis, which helps you feel absolutely convinced about your choice of investment. And I like the fact when he mentioned stick to a system. So the key here is that, do we have a system? And then the effort would be to stick to that system, which is logical, which is simple, which we can connect with on a day-to-day basis. So that's really something which, I'm taking away from this chapter. Yeah.
My takeaway is that last point, which says, stick to a system that logically works for you, works rather than going beyond tips and tricks. So we already have a logical system in place which is taught in the community. So we can relate to that. Like we can stick to a system that makes sense and that is logically truthful to you and it works for you. So that is my take on it.
And I think just to add to this, the last line actually was really that stayed with me, that it says that, the system which is logical and works could build a lengthy and impressive track record. So I think that's the key, right? When we believe in our system, follow the process we have a complete structure through our program. So yeah, and so it says that it will help you build an impressive track record. I think that's really what Warren Buffett stands for, right? Like 44 years of impressive track record. That's so brilliant. Yeah.
For me, what I captured was a lot of the times women in our community would ask that, okay, can I consider 20% as my rate of return from stocks? So when I read such reports that they share, that okay, in the many years that he invested, generating 32% per year rate of return, and the crazy 490,000 sort of numbers. So, well, even if I'm able to make a fraction of that, that's good enough for me. But yes, the question always remains, how do you select such companies, which can really, really drive that kind of performance? So yeah, that's where my mind is. How do we get that diamond?
Yeah, and I think one of the things I've also learned through his temperament, right? I mean, I started investing in stocks only last year, pretty recently. And initially, I felt I was in this tearing hurry to learn everything. And it's like a slow bake, I think, a very slow bake. You have to have a good amount of patience to first have some kind of an emotional shift inside of you to really fully comprehend that this is like a long-term relationship, right? So the quick gratification won't last. And yeah, I used to, like, initially I used to get a little upset when I would see all these pricings going down and all that, but then I realized that is also a part of that journey, and knowing how to respond comes with some time, and like just understanding how businesses work and how the market works as well. And I think he himself talks about a lot of the mistakes, the potential mistakes that he made where he lost out. So yeah, I think it's quite it's encouraging to read about him and his approach to things. So this book has been a good read in that aspect, I think.
And as you were sharing, I was also typing Berkshire Hathaway annual newsletter, annual shareholder letters, So if anybody wants to read, then it's just, if anybody wants to just take a look at what it looks like, what do they talk about, what's there for me. So you'll find it easily on the internet. So you can take a look.
Yeah.
But that would again require that I dedicate myself to reading it and then make some effort to understand. But sometimes in Wealthy Insight magazine, they do give snippets of the annual letters. So I always find it interesting to read that at any point that they share. Just a few times I've read. And then it also makes me wonder that for so many years to, with the changing scenarios, with the changing, with so many things that they have gone through, that he has gone through, he has seen, what it would take for an investor to really keep changing with times, right? To keep up. That's another thing that I'm learning, that if I'm in this game, then I just need to stay up to date and just learn how is it that I will keep up. Can I get bored at any point? I don't know. So maybe at 70, I will still be hot and smart because I continue to be a knowledgeable stock investor.
You'll always be hot and smart when you're 80 and 90 also, because the hotness is in you.
Yeah. Yes, I like the sound of it. Thank you so much, Meryl. Okay. So I think we could together today, wherever we were, together we have read 2 chapters of this amazing book, and we could connect, we could discuss and share our insights. That's a great, great accomplishment for all of us. And for the coming week, I propose that we continue to read and we take on chapter 13, which is value, people, and relationships. So let's see what we get to pick up from this chapter, and whatever we are reading, whatever insights we get, things you want to just share with the community, just feel free to share in the Telegram group. Bring all your sharings to the Online Money Book Club there. So continue to do that throughout the week, and next week we will come back and share whatever our findings are or whatever we learned from this chapter, and then we continue to read together and make progress with this book. Okay, so that's the plan for the upcoming week. So on that note, we can complete here this evening. I wish all of you an amazing weekend, guys. Okay, anything, Hira, anything you'd like to share?
I think, well, this is very interesting. And yes, now with everyone, I'm committing to ensure I read this book, complete this book with the community. Once again. Otherwise, there have been many, many books that I've picked and dropped and left. But coming together is so wonderful. That's what. Thank you so much. And let's share on Telegram. Let's continue to keep sharing there. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good
day. Bye. Have a great weekend.
Have a colorful weekend, just like your hairband. Okay.
Thank you. You too, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.